Hello, welcome back. So today we are going to be doing a full face of base makeup for acne prone skin. I have congestion. Acne prone skin tends to lean a little bit more on the oily side. This whole thing came about because I would notice throughout my own skincare journey of trying to figure out my skin, trying to figure out how to, I was gonna say maintain my acne. What? How to address my acne, while preventing things like stripping, which leads to dehydration and all of that. It's anyone who has acne knows it's a balance. I noticed that when I was wearing certain makeup products throughout the day, like even if it was like a few hours, if I was only wearing makeup for like a few hours, say like 3 or 4 hours, I would notice that like if I had maybe something small, by the time that I removed that makeup, it had grown. And there are specific products that can kind of like exacerbate your acne. So I wanted to focus on makeup that is really great if you have congestion prone skin and that's something that you have really been struggling with, and maybe you just don't know about like products that you should be avoiding. So this makeup tutorial is going to focus on water-based products, okay? Water-based products. So I already have prepped my skin. I used the Anua, I forgot to grab it, but I used the Anua Rice toner, and then also I can't remember if it's called like a milk or an essence or whatever. It's basically like a liquidy kind of moisturizer. The Rice, the 70 Rice by Anua is great for acne prone skin. So if that's something that like you're interested in, I love those two products. The toner, which is a little bit more like watery, and then you go in with something slightly more milky. Neither of them are heavy, but they provide a really perfect amount of moisture for my skin. So that's what I have going on right now. Some other really great makeup, Some other really great water-based products. This is a moisturizer that I really like. This is from Inky List. This is the Omega Water Cream. So you want to look for ingredients that have water first, okay? Products that have water as the first ingredient. So obviously a water cream is going to be really good. A lot of like gel moisturizers will typically have water as the first ingredient. You also want to keep that in mind in terms of your primers. I'm not going to prime. I don't really use primers anymore. I mostly just use my 2 skincare products and obviously my sunscreen. But another primer that I actually really like is the Pore Eclipse from Milk if you're looking for something that's going to do a little bit of mattifying. This is really nice because it is water-based, but it is also mattifying, but it's also hydrating enough, you know? There's a lot of mattifying products out there that are just like, they just feel like heavy and dry on the skin. I don't like that. I like my skin to feel hydrated. So if you don't want something that's like heavy and mattifying, this is a really great primer to try out from Milk. So those are my water-based like skin prep recommendations. Obviously everyone's skin is so different. We all react to things very differently. So you will want to look for things that are water-based, but maybe you won't like the things that I use. I'm just making recommendations. You know what I mean? That being said, maybe go through the things that you are already using and see what the first ingredient is. If it's water, then maybe those end up being in a pile of products that you actually like using that don't exacerbate your acne. And maybe you find that some of the products that have other ingredients, like more emollient ingredients, and you avoid them, maybe it helps to, slow that process down or clear up your skin. Like I said, everybody is so different. So I'm going to be starting off with foundation. My favorite foundation, like almost all around recently, has been from House Labs. This is the Triclone Skin Tech Foundation. This is a water-based foundation. There are some other ones. I'm going to give this a good shake. Usually like a water-based foundation is, it's a much more liquidy formula. This is like somewhere in between. It's not so liquidy, but it is more so than, you can see that drip. You know what I mean? It's more so than, I don't know, MAC Studio Fix or something like, no. But yeah, MAC Face and Body, I think, is water-based. The Dior Backstage foundation is water-based. I'll link some other ones down below. There's a NARS one that's really good that is water-based. So if you're looking specifically for water-based foundations, those are great, but I'm loving the House Labs one. This is in the shade 030 Fair Cool, which I take issue with, but it's fine. That's a conversation for another day. Now I'm going to be using a brush to apply this today. I'm going to be using my Refer brush. This is actually the AAO1 because it's got the longer handle, but I will link the 38 down below. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is a brush that I created with Refer, and we recently made it a permanent part of their collection. So it features a shorter handle, but that's what I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to dip into the foundation and then make sure that I'm sort of like working it into the brush on a different part of my hand so that I'm really working it into the bristles. Now, typically with water-based products, they're going to apply a little bit better with a brush. Synthetic fibers are really good for this. This is a blend of natural and synthetic because it's not going to soak up the product as much. Like, you can use a sponge. I've used a sponge for years and I still do. But typically, especially with more watery products, thinner products, they just get soaked up. They just end up getting soaked up by the sponge. Now, I've been sick and my skin has been dry, so please excuse any peeling around my nose because I have been blowing my nose a lot. I'm going to focus this in the center of my face to start off with. Overall, my skin has been looking a lot better, which is really nice. But I do have areas where I have, you know, spots that are fading, a couple little active acne. I have this over here right now. So something to keep in mind when you are applying your foundation is to use patting motions in any areas where you need a little bit more coverage. And generally, when you are applying your foundation with a brush, you kind of want to like buff it into the skin like this with patting motions, with gentle patting motions. And you can go a little bit, you know, faster in areas that don't need as much coverage. You kind of want to let it linger a little bit more in the areas that do. You'll get a nice even blend of your foundation if you're using this application method. And don't feel like you can't swipe. You totally can swipe, but sometimes I swipe to begin with, like applying the product on my face, and then I'll go in with a patting motion just afterwards to kind of like blend it all together. It's up to you. So I'm focusing this on all the areas where I need the most coverage. Remember, foundation is meant to even your skin tone. It's not necessarily meant to cover everything, okay? So this foundation is really nice. It's kind of like a medium buildable coverage, but it does have that really like lightweight formula. So it really does not feel heavy on the skin. So that's really what you want to focus on when you have acne prone skin. Always make sure that you are checking the ingredient list. Okay, so like I said, my skin's been doing better. So I haven't even used a full pump of that foundation. It does go a pretty long way. So, you know, you can see little spots around my forehead, again, around my temples. This guy right here, I'm not covering them up completely because I'm going to do some spot concealing, and we'll get to that. But we have a nice lightweight application of foundation to even the skin tone. My skin feels nice and lightweight, just like the product. One of the things that I recognized when I was wearing other products, did I just say that? Okay, I personally like to go in with my bronzer and contour before I go in with concealer. So I'm gonna do that next. One of the brands that has been kind of an OG for water-based products is Glossier. They have the cloud paints, which are fabulous. They are water. Water is the first ingredient. They are water-based. They are water-based. This is the Seamless Cheek Color in the shade Sail. So I'm gonna be using this as my bronzer. And again, I'm going to be applying it with my brush because it is quite a thin formula. You can see probably. Has a very lightweight tint to it, you know, like it's a little bit more of a sorry, my cat's in the litter box. I don't know if you can hear that, but it has a very, like, it has that very watery feeling to it. So it's going to be incredibly lightweight on the skin. So again, using my brush, I'm going to dip in. I'm just going to pat it on the back of my hand. And since this is a little bit more of a tint product, it's kind of hard to go in with too much, but you always want to be sure. That was so loud. You always want to be sure that you're not piling it on. So I'm going to use this to add a little definition and warmth to the face. And I'm sort of like angling my brush so that I'm using the point to kind of carve around that cheekbone, keeping it up high so I'm not dragging my face down. It's a really nice color, right? And these products are really, really great. They have kind of like a cooling feeling. They're very light and cooling on the skin. So you can instantly, when you're using it, you can instantly feel the difference between a water-based product and something that has like a wax or an emollient. One of the things that you really want to avoid, unfortunately, are stick products. Stick foundations, stick blushes and bronzers and contours. Again, everyone's skin is different. So something to keep in mind is kind of like, what is the product and where are you using it and where do you tend to get acne? I use a contour stick that I love so much and I'm not willing to give it up. Mostly because I use it like underneath my jawline and sometimes I'll use it a teeny bit like right here, but it's not, I don't use it in the areas where I tend to break out the most. So if that's the case with you, if you have specific areas, like maybe you're really acne prone on your chin or your lower jawline, then you probably don't want to use, you want to make sure that you're avoiding a stick in that area. But this is, you know, not to say that you have to completely get rid of all of your stick products or you can't use any cream products because they use slightly more emollient ingredients. But it might be something to think about, you know, if you've had those days where you've only been wearing makeup for a few hours and you notice that you end up with like so many more breakouts at the end of the day, it might be worth looking into what is the first ingredient of the products that you're using. But this is really, really nice because it has like this more liquidy sort of like tint formula. It blends into the skin so beautifully. It really makes the skin look like skin, you know, it doesn't look like you're wearing makeup. So these products are a lot harder to make look heavy, you know, if you've been dealing with cakiness or maybe you have a heavy hand. Maybe you don't even have acne prone skin and you just happened upon this video and you're like, well, I want things to look very like watercolor, you know, very like lightweight. Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm taking this in all the areas that I want to warm up. And I am going to take a teeny bit of that from here. I've just been doing this recently and I like it. And you can see that I am very much swiping right now. But I don't have like a ton of breakouts in this area specifically. Any area where you have acne or you have breakouts or it's an area that you need to maintain more coverage, don't do the swiping. Don't do it. This is going to be your like worst enemy right here. You want to do this. And that's going to really help maintain the coverage in that area. And then I'm just going to take a smaller brush, my little guy, pick up a little bit of that. I'm just going to place it like right here above my nose. I haven't really been doing like a full nose contour because I use fake freckles now. So I'll kind of just like do this at the tip and then sort of like blend it out. And I actually like the way it looks with a bronzer. Just like a little something. For my blush, once again, from Glossier, I'm going to be using the Cloud Paints. I'm going to mix them, actually. I'm going to mix the shade, where's the shade on here? Beam and Wisp. Oh, did I tell you the name of this? Sail, I told you that. I'm going to mix Beam and Wisp, because we have like a slightly more peachy and then a slightly more like sort of fuchsia, I think. No, I guess it's pretty purple. But I don't want either of these to be like the colors that they are alone. So I just want to mix them together. Because like that's too orange in my opinion. You know what I mean? So we're going to mix them and see what happens. Hello? Wait, I was going to apply concealer now. Yeah, let me do concealer. What? So very luckily, the products that I love for concealer are all water-based, which is fantastic. So my Kosas Revealer Concealer is the product that I use basically. It's basically like a match for my skin tone. I use this for spot concealing and just like little areas where I need a little bit more coverage, maybe like around the nostrils and around the mouth and such. My House Labs concealer, similar to the foundation, is also water-based. This is in the shade 01 Fair Neutral. I use this to do some highlighting. Sometimes I haven't really been using it as much. And then my NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Nougatine. This is my color corrector. So I pretty much only use this around my dark circles, but I like to use it to mix with my other concealers to do spot concealing, which we will do. So what I do now, I have to be very careful around my blushes. What I'll do is I'll put a little bit of each concealer on the back of my hand, so that I can kind of go between them. And I usually like to pick up like a tiny brush, something small. This is a Smith brush. It doesn't matter, whatever you want. And I'll start off with my color corrector. So similar to my foundation brush, I'll just pick up a teeny bit and kind of like work it into the brush. Use whatever brush works for you. I just have like a difficult, here, I'll zoom you in. Just like a little more deep set in here, you know? So I need a slightly more detailed brush. I'm just gonna pat this in the area that gets really, really, really dark, which for me is like right in this little, just in this hollow, and then like right in here towards my inner corner. I'll just take a teeny little bit more and press it into the outer part. And this area tends to get a little dark as well. I have videos on dark circles if you want something a little bit more in depth there. Okay, so that has obviously done a lot for my dark circles. Using that same brush, I'm gonna go into my Kosas concealer in the shade 0.5 Neutral. And I'm just going to use this in the areas where I want a little more coverage. So it's usually around my nostril. I tend to get like a little bit of redness there. Basically any areas that tend to be a little more red. So I'm gonna take this slightly down into my smile lines, and you really don't need a lot because I know people struggle with creasing in those areas. I like to do the corner of my mouth. I get darkness here. Helps to kind of lift your mouth up, the corners of your mouth, so you don't look so angry if you have resting bitch face like I absolutely do. So I'm just kind of laying this in right now, and then I'm going to go back and blend everything out. And then I think that's pretty good. I'm going to mix a little bit of my Kosas with my House Labs now. So slightly lighter color. And I'm just going to create like a little highlight right here. I do like to highlight my forehead, like this little situation. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna mix my House Labs. Actually, you know what? I'll just go in with House Labs. Screw it, I haven't done it in a second, so let's just do it. I'm just gonna use my lighter House Labs concealer. I'm gonna lay that in underneath my eyes. I'm taking it a little bit lower, just to highlight this area. And you can see I'm just patting. We're gonna go back in and blend. So any areas that I want to highlight. All right, now I am going to take my brush once again, buffing. I'm just gonna go and blend all of that in. So just gently pressing into the skin. Oh, I didn't do my chin. I didn't do my chin. I always do my chin. I'm going to take a little Kosas right here. I tend to get a little bit of redness on my chin. It's not always so noticeable, but I feel like I don't notice it, and then I'll notice it like at the end of the day, and I'm like, why didn't I cover that up? So just very gently patting. Making sure everything is blended. And again, I am still ignoring any spots on my face. Very nice. See? Beautiful base. Beautiful base. Okay, now for my blush. Back to the blush. I'm going to go back to this brush. Buff it. Buff it. So I can switch. Using my switch to switch. And I'm going to tap between my little Glossier blushes to mix. Ooh, that's so pretty. Look at that. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Gorge. So I'm making sure to really work this into my brush. God, that's pretty. And then we're gonna apply blush. The cat's eating. I don't know if you can hear her. This is such a pretty color. Take a little bit of that down my nose. I always keep a paper towel around just in case I apply a little bit too much or like there's a mess I need to clean up or whatever. So like I just buffed a little bit off of my brush because I picked up a little, it was like just like a little oversaturated. You don't want it to be too saturated. And look at that, that really applies like a watercolor. It's so gentle and lightweight, and something that you want to keep in mind, especially when you're using water-based products, is you want to make sure that you're using water-based products together. So things are going to blend a little bit better. You're going to avoid things like pilling if everything you're using is complementing each other. So for instance, you want to make sure that whatever your like moisturizer or your primer is water-based, because you wouldn't put watercolor paints on top of oil paint, right? So if you're using like a heavily emollient moisturizer and then you're going in with a bunch of these like thin water-based products on top, you're probably gonna get like breakage. It's so rude when my camera turns off while I'm in the middle of a sentence. Things are going to like potentially pill, they're gonna potentially break up, and you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna have a bad time. Isn't that so pretty? Look at how like, it just blends, it just like melts into the skin, and it feels like nothing. It feels like nothing. It's amazing. So now that we have all of our base products on for the most part, now I am going to go in and do my spot concealing. Now I am going to speed through this, like I'm going to show a little bit, but I do have a very in-depth video about my spot concealing method that I will put up here for you to check out. Now in that, well, I guess I'm just using all my water-based concealer, so yeah, it would work for you guys. But it's basically, it's the whole process. It's the thought process behind it. So if you're like a little bit confused as to like what order I'm doing things in, that's gonna be really worth checking out. Ziva's eating so loud, my cat. She's so loud right now. It's like really gross. She'll only eat in here though. Okay, I just popped on a brow and I did the tiniest bit of contouring underneath my jawline just because it's like, it's my thing. You can use sticks. Just be maybe a little bit more like aware of where you're using them. And if you happen to be breaking out in certain areas that you're using a stick, maybe give it a break for a little while and just see if like it clears up. So whatever. I used my contour stick on my jawline. And I did my brows, and I also curled my lashes just for you. I wanted to be cute. I'm just gonna put, I feel like I need lips, so I'm just gonna, I've been obsessed with these, are the new lip products from KJH brand. Katie Jane Hughes, this is Etch. They're so good. I have a little bit of lip balm on. And then I just wanted to do, yeah, just a cute. Such a nice base, and it looks so fresh. Let's talk setting powders, okay? Because obviously we need a setting powder. So there are some products that are ingredients that you definitely want to try and avoid. I have been using this, the L'Oreal Infallible Blurfection powder, which is quite nice. Like, I like the powder. However, the first ingredient, cornstarch. Now, I recently learned that cornstarch can actually feed on bacteria. So it's not the best option if you have acne-prone skin. Cornstarch might be something that you want to avoid. So if you've been using this powder and you've noticed that your, breakouts get significantly worse because, or when you're wearing makeup, you might want to give it a rest and try something else. There are some like differing opinions, I guess, when it comes to setting powders. Like, a lot of people think that like talc is just like evil. From what I understand, talc is not evil. However, talc can be a little bit irritating to more sensitive skin, and it can be like maybe a little bit heavier. So if you do deal with like acne, you might want to avoid talc. There's also some like contrasting opinions about silica. Silica is like a much more like, it's sort of that like jelly feeling. It sort of like blurs the skin. The number of calls that I have received. I'm sorry, sir, I don't know you. Okay. Anyway, the House Labs blurring powder is contains fermented arnica and silica. So if you're going in that direction, like if you're down with silica, that's a really good option. Mineral powders are going to be really good. So for example, I feel like Bare Minerals is kind of like the one that everybody knows about. However, I recently picked up these mineral foundations, super random, from Alima Pure. I picked up a couple of colors to do bronzing and potentially contouring, and then also a color that is supposed to be my foundation shade. Mostly because they have olive shades and I have an olive skin tone. So that's something to, just for all my olive people out there, if you've been looking for a mineral powder foundation, maybe try these. The reason that I'm bringing them up now is because I, a lot of the time, like to reinforce my makeup with a powder on top of it. So I'll apply a cream and then I'll set my face, and then I'll go in with like a powder bronzer over my cream bronzer and a powder blush on top of my cream blush. So if you're like, how do I do that with products that are friendly to acne prone skin, consider picking up mineral blushes, setting powders, bronzers, and you can use a foundation. You just need a little bit less of it because this is meant to have a lot of coverage, or at least like more coverage than a bronzer would. So that's something to keep in mind. Today I'm going to be using the Ciel Filter and Protect powder. This is SPF 30. The main ingredient is zinc oxide, which can be nice and soothing when it comes to having acne. Plus SPF 30, little bonus. I think there were some other powders that I wanted to mention though. Oh, Laura Mercier, the original powder, is good for oily skin. Avoid the glowy version, though. Cover FX has a talc and cornstarch free powder, the Perfect setting powder. And then the Hourglass translucent setting powder is ultrafine silica based with a blurring finish. So those are some non-comedogenic powders that are cornstarch free. If like me, you've been using a cornstarch powder and you're like, oh shit, like maybe this is breaking me out. In place of cornstarch though, you could use a rice, like powders that have rice. They're typically gentle, and they're less likely to feed on bacteria. So if that's something that you want to, like, if you love the idea of having a cornstarch powder but now you're worried about it, you could try a rice-based powder. These sweatpants that I wear, they do this. They make that. I don't know why. I don't know like what it is about the material of them, but they do that on my couch too, and it's really annoying. Cause I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make sure that I'm all padded out. I'm going in with a clean 38 brush to set my under eyes. I always start with my under eyes because that's where I need the most coverage. And I don't want creasing. Okay, and then I'm gonna take whatever's left over all around my face. Obviously, if you have acne prone skin, most likely tend to get a little oily in some areas. So making sure that you are setting those areas well by really working that powder into the brush. And then I like to I don't like most of the time setting my whole face with powder, but I will set certain areas like my temples, since I do tend to get breakouts there. When that area is shiny, it just stands out a little bit more. You don't want it to be overly matte because that can also make it stand out more. But I just want to like satinify it just a little bit. And I'm just gonna take whatever's left over and just kind of gently set the face. Pretty, right? Isn't that beautiful? And that spot concealing does a lot of the heavy lifting when you have areas that need more coverage. Okay, for luminizer, a really like OG one is Milk Makeup. This is the Hydro Grip Glow Primer. It's a pretty, I know it looks like a really dark, like bronzy shade. It's pretty universal. It's really nice on like the very tops of your cheeks, like right here. Yeah, I'm actually gonna mix a little bit of this in with the Say one, which is also a water-based luminizer. So again, look for water-based luminizers if you like die for a highlight and you want to use something a little bit thicker and you don't tend to get breakouts like right on the tops of your cheeks, then go for it. But if you do, like I tend to get breakouts along my temples, and sometimes I would take highlight up on my temples, and that just, not only can it exacerbate the acne, it can also bring more attention to it when that's like really shiny, like I was just saying. So I'm gonna take the teeniest little bit of Milk and the teeniest little bit of Say and just blend them together. The Say one is very like, it's got like hardly any pearl in it. It like really just looks like a little bit of a glow. So I'm just gonna mix these together to get the kind of shade that I want, which is really beautiful, like kind of pale gold. And I'm personally, especially once I've set my face or applied any other products, I'm personally not a fan of applying with my fingers. You totally can, but I feel like it sort of ends up like breaking up my makeup, or it just, sometimes like my fingers can grab on to my foundation or my blush or my bronzer or whatever and like pull a little bit of it off. So I like to go in with whatever I applied my blush with. So I'm gonna grab my brush and just tap into that luminizer. And I'm gonna focus this right on the top of the cheekbone. See, instantly went into my temple. So that is something that I like to do. Like this little shape right here, you know? And you just want to be careful about how much you're applying, because it's a very liquidy sort of feeling product, the two of them. So if you go in with like way too much on top of like your foundation, you do run the risk of like pulling a little bit of coverage off. So just keep that in mind. Go on a little bit. You can always build up a little bit more. Isn't that nice? So pretty. This is the finished makeup, guys. Really beautiful. Yes, so nice. Everything looks like really beautifully melted together. It looks like my skin. It feels so lightweight. Like this is probably the most lightweight makeup has ever felt on my face. Obviously, because if a product is water-based, it's got a lot of water in it. It's gonna be a lot more lightweight than something that has like an emollient or a wax base. I need to take this off my hand before I get it everywhere. Oh wait, I just realized that I didn't tell you about setting sprays, but I feel like setting sprays are kind of like easier to find water-based. But two that I like are the Milani ones. Milani Make It Last. They have a regular one and then they have a mattifying one, which is just like really nice to have the options. And these are both water-based, so yeah. All right, guys, that's it for this video. This is the finished result. I love it so much. It feels incredibly comfortable, lightweight, doesn't feel heavy on the skin. Sometimes those heavier products, like the cream products, the stick, like a stick foundation, and then you use like a stick contour and a stick bronzer and a stick blush, and all of those, and a stick highlight, all of those products on top of each other, they can feel just like suffocating to the skin. So if you, again, everybody's different. I'm not saying that you have to avoid like all of like stick products or all emollient ingredients if you have acne prone skin. However, if you are someone who has, like me, you experience like I wear my makeup for a few hours, things end up like getting more inflamed, and I just have like more breakouts when I wash my face at the end of the day, then you might want to just like give this a shot, or at least pare down, you know? And focus those stick products on the areas that, like if you have a stick product that you just like love, focus it in an area where you're not getting the breakouts. You know what I mean? Like obviously if you have a blush that you love so much, but you break out on your cheeks, you're not going to use that blush on your jawline where you don't break out. You know what I mean? Like, so I'll be like, I'm aware of that. But you might want to just do a little bit of give and take. So stick with the sticks in the areas that are not constantly breaking out. I hope this was helpful. I love this base. I love these products. They're so comfy. They're really easy to use as well. Like they're very user friendly. A lot of water-based products are sort of meant to, because they sort of like melt into the skin, be like finger friendly, you know, like very on the go, a little bit more like clean girl, you know, but that doesn't mean that you can't have fun with the makeup, or, you know, makeup on your eyes and stuff. So I hope it was helpful. Please let me know if there are any water-based products that you love, that like maybe you have had this problem and you switched to water-based products. I am definitely more interested in using more water-based products, and I kind of feel like we don't have enough of them. I mean, maybe we do, but I don't know. I just feel like like heavier products are just like more abundant for some reason. So please let me know those products. I'd like to try them. And don't forget to check out the spot concealing video. It's very, very good, if I do say so myself. Bye.